Okay, we are ready to work on would be the transmission end of the drive shaft. Same as before, we got to deal with the coupler. I put some punch marks on it, so put it back in the right position. Keep track of which side the thicker piece goes on the coupler, which on these, like the other one, is to the right of the aluminum side, or to the right of the aluminum ear. So I pulled the bolts out, and we will separate it. So we can go ahead and take the bolts out here, go ahead and bolt a new coupler on this piece. And then we've got to take this to the press and press the shaft out, snap ring there. We'll press the shaft out, and then there's some snap rings in there to get to the bearings. We'll knock the bearings out, put new bearings in, and reassemble it. Took the drive shaft over to the winch vise. Held it from the other end. I didn't put the vise on any of the aluminum parts. Held it by the steel input shaft. And I grabbed the ears like this, so as not to damage anything. Then went down to this end, popped it off, put it back on with Loctite and 52 foot-pounds on the bolts. So now, let's get that snap ring off, get that shaft pressed out. Okay, pay attention on this, because this does not come out the way I figured it would. I figured when I looked at this in the housing, take that clip off right there and shove the shaft out of the housing. That's not how it works, because there is another retainer clip there. So this shaft cannot come out. I started putting a little pressure on it, nothing was happening, so back off, figure out what was going on. What you need to do is, on this other end, which is under this piece here, under the 3-eared piece, there is a snap ring there. Pop that loose, then put it back in the press. And honestly, you may not even need a press, because there are O-rings inside here that fit up, that make it a snug fit with those bearings. So the whole assembly comes out like that. Now, and it comes out this way. So now we can put new bearings on this, then put it back in the housing, and we're good. So right now, we need to pop this snap ring off there, and then we should be able to remove both bearings from that shaft, replace them, and then slide the whole thing back up in that housing. Because there's snap rings in the housing on both ends that center it up. Go. All right, put her in the press, push this one off, and then we'll push that one off. Okay. That one's off there. And there you got the shaft. Yeah, I got the shaft, all right. So we'll clean this up, slide some new bearings on it. Yeah, the new 6010 bearing. Sliding right in there, just beautiful. Okay, now we can put its snap ring on. Match up the snap ring. And she is on there. All right, the other bearing is a 6008. And we're good to press it. Now I found a socket that will slide down over the end of the shaft, but lines up with the inner race. And that should pretty good to push it on there. It's on. Ready to put the snap ring on it. Alright. Now, we need to replace the O-rings in here, which they came in that kit, and then we're ready to slide that back up inside it. Right, slipped the new O-rings in, pushed it in as far as I could by hand. So it's just a matter of snapping it up over those new O-rings. We'll go ahead and push it on down in there. This bearing here hits a ledge inside, so it can only go so far. And then the snap ring on the outside keeps everything in position. And the other the other bearing is snap ringed onto the shaft. There we are, we're all the way in. Now we just got to install the big snap ring. All right, the big snap ring's in. This thing is ready to be bolted on back onto the drive shaft. Which that's just the normal blue Loctite, 52 pounds. Okay, the drive shaft is complete and ready for installation, which I'll probably do tomorrow because I need to take the torque tube to the car wash, and it's cold outside. One thing I did notice, I mentioned keeping track of which side the thicker part went. Well, I noticed these cast in the rubber. Hadn't really noticed those before. I went back and looked at the instructions, and they are supposed to be pointing toward the flange. So, basically the direction the bolt is going. So by putting it the same orientation that the original one came out, they're in the right spot now. But that's another way to tell how to go, is aim that toward the flange direction of the bolt. So keep that in mind. Just didn't look at it close enough, but they are on there. Well, we are down to drive shaft is all together. I've done a little cleaning on the little bell housing there and the torque tube. So we're pretty much ready to slide that back in. Okay, I've got the bell housing positioned on the end of the drive shaft. Dropped a couple of bolts in just to make sure to line everything up. And should be ready to slide it together. And with this disc in the middle, that should keep everything lined up to where it just slides right on through. There we go. All right, it is in there. A couple of bolts in, everything fits flush there. So now I'll clean up all the bolts, put some Loctite on them and fit them in, and I'm gonna go see if I can figure out what they're supposed to be torqued to. Torque tube assembly is done. Thing turns nice and smoothly. Just put the ring of bolts in, torqued them. I couldn't find an exact torque spec for these because my stuff is for the later models. They use the snap ring to hold it together. The bolts here and all the other bolts on both ends on the bell housings there were 37. They're the same size bolts, so I went with 37 foot-pounds on these. Just crisscrossed it and then did a circle around to finalize the torque. So should be ready to set this aside until we get clutch in. Transmission's over there. The parts for it should be here tomorrow, so it's going to be a cold weekend. Should be able to get the transmission all back together, and then Thanksgiving week it's supposed to warm up some, so I should be able to get it all put back together, hopefully running, get it out of my driveway. Thanks for watching.